So PRCA Northwest and Yorkshire are delighted to be joined today by a fabulous panel of women working in PR and comms across both our regions. And today is International Women's Day, so there has never been a better time to talk about and celebrate women in PR. But the industry in the UK and globally is dominated by females, which is fantastic. But yet, sadly, there is still a large gender gap, with many women being overlooked for those top positions. So today we hope to explore why and how this is happening, and what we can do collectively to shift the gender balance and create equal opportunities for women in PR. So over to Lee.
Yes, so my first question actually is to Carrie specifically. Ooh. To hot seat you. No, but just to, flag, I mean, you've done so incredibly well. Well, you launched Rise at 7, age 26, is that right?
Yeah.
And now it's flying. In terms of being a woman in the industry and also a young woman, what obstacles have you had in your way and how have you overcome those?
Oh, wow. This is interesting because I've been discussing this over the last 6 months, really, because Rise at 7 has been going through all different kind of changes, even in terms of hiring people into the C-suite, hiring people into the leadership team, et cetera, et cetera. And mostly what comes up, I guess, in the conversations around that is one around confidence. So I guess confidence is a big driver, I think, of why I'm in the position I'm in and why a lot of women maybe aren't in the ones that they are in. And I think we have a lot of self-awareness and a lot of confidence kind of building women in our businesses and around us at all times. But then I guess the second thing that I've really faced is kind of being questioned around kind of how legit, I guess, I am as a CEO and founder. I've had that quite a lot on social media. So it's been difficult, definitely being in the role that I'm in. But I definitely feel like the industry is getting better at supporting that and kind of raising awareness and educating men, I guess, when it comes to, encouraging more women in leadership positions. But over the kind of last 2 years, I've become more aware of how hard it is being in the role that I am. I was, in my last role, I was a campaign strategist. I ran campaigns. I was not on a senior leadership team. I was not on, a director or anything like that. But now I am in the role. It's made me aware of really what goes on, even down to kind of, having legal conversations, having accountancy conversations, but even posting things on Twitter and seeing the response that I get as a woman. So yeah, it's been hard, but also like I can see the industry getting a little bit better every day.
And it's so interesting you mentioned confidence, because only this morning, well, Lisa and I are always talking about imposter syndrome, that phrase, which I'm sure everyone has. But also confidence is so critical, isn't it, in terms of your career and getting ahead. Pav, what do you feel about confidence being a woman in the industry?
God, yeah. I mean, it takes a while, doesn't it? To get that trust and I guess build those relationships within the industry. And I've been doing it for quite a long time now. But again, running your own business is very different to working for other people. So even when I was in roles working at the likes of Morrison's and Poundland and Co-op, it's not your own business. So I agree, Carrie, it's a completely different kettle of fish. You're in charge. You've got to absolutely have that confidence and I guess motivation every day, even when you do have days when you're a bit like, am I doing the right thing? You've just got to keep going, haven't you? And it's more important than ever, I think, to have that plan, have that 5-year plan, and go. And actually, it's all right if things change, but you've got to have that goal, haven't you, and keep going. And so I'm quite lucky. My husband's so supportive, and he's obviously partner in the business, so massively encourages me. But yeah, no, it's challenging but exciting at the same time.
And Jane, what is your experience about being confident in your career? How have you found that to date?
Well, I think my sort of background is sort of marketing and events, so I'm relatively new to the world of communications. So about sort of 3 years ago, I made the transition into healthcare, looking after comms and marketing, and then was actually given an opportunity. I work for a really innovative company to take on the role of head of communications for a global healthcare company. So, for someone to believe in you and give you that opportunity, that was an incredible for me. So yes, I think that's given me a big confidence boost. I think it does help you make decisions then, and in your communications. And especially, I think we were sort of talking about as you mentioned, with sort of being able to communicate externally and make those decisions, where people think we're good at doing that as sort of the, I have to get this bit down, but as the the face of the company, and we're confident. So that sort of helps. I think we sort of talked about this before, but so men tend to take more advisory roles, whereas women tend to be out there on the front face of the business. So yeah.
And I think also there's something to be said for multitasking, which we were talking about a little bit before. So Jade, what's your experience of the industry and being confident in order to succeed?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I started in the industry 8 years ago on a graduate scheme, kind of fresh out of uni with all of the confidence in the world. And I think as you start to progress, you start to realize how kind of important that is. But I think for me, what has been critical at every agency that I've been at is just having great role models. So whether that takes the form of line managers or mentors or just colleagues who share their advice and knowledge with you and really champion you. And I think ultimately that has been kind of critical to helping me with my confidence in the industry for sure.
And Kerry, as you said before, you picked up on something about how we can make change. You were talking about male counterparts supporting females more. And this is not today to talk negatively about men in PR, because there's some great supportive men. I've worked with tons out there. But how do you think the role of the man in the comms sector is changing or can change to really support their female colleagues to rise to those senior positions?
I think in our business, we have these kind of who's accountable for something, who's responsible, who do we consult with, etc. And I think a lot of women are often seen as a bit of a consultant. You go to them and ask them for advice, but actually we need to take more accountability. And I think men are doing so much better of actually just hearing women out and actually not questioning what they say. But then also one of the best things I think one of my male managers did once is set expectations on things like pay rises and promotions. I remember I was 21, a young graduate, and I think I was earning like 18 grand or something like that. And I remember thinking, I want a pay rise, I want a promotion. And I kind of said to him, give me the lowdown. If I'm going to ask for promotion, how much should I be asking for? Do I ask for 19 grand, 20 grand? Or like, how big of a jump could I go? And he just wrote down, okay, if you're at this stage, you usually go for like a 4 or 5 grand. I'm like, oh, really? And he said, yeah, like no matter what, you go for the 4 or 5 grand pay rise. And then when you get to kind of like, your head of positions and things like that, don't be afraid of asking for 10, 20 grand. And I'm like, whoa. So he basically set the standard. So I knew, the guys that were sat next to me, I knew what they were asking for. And I think giving women insight and knowledge of, what we should be asking for, when we should be asking for promotions, and setting that standard for everybody is really important. And that's one of the best things I think one of my male managers did for me, of really kind of giving me that insight and knowledge that empowered me, because first thing I did is walked in and asked for an extra 5 grand.
Brilliant, you.
Hey, I was doing well at 18.
And Jane, I know we spoke off the record earlier. We touched on this as well. You said you're in quite a supportive environment and managed by, I think, males and your sort of direct responsibility. But how do you think we can get the industry to change slightly and our male colleagues to adapt?
Yeah, so within my role, my team is made up of 2 external agencies, and I work with both male and females within those agencies. But I think I'm the sort of decision maker in the company for that. So we get the respect from those companies and from working with the male counterparts, if you like. And the other thing is, especially with social media, I came into this role sort of, it's been a progression from sort of marketing events background, but I've learned so much with sort of social media over the pandemic. With lockdown, we really sort of took off with our Chief Medical Officer, Carol Sikora, and his account. and I've learned a lot about that. And you know, I'm very sort of supportive of my team, and they respect, I suppose, me for that, for letting them sort of go and do their own thing and how they want to do it.
That sounds good. And Jade, have you had any sort of experience in this area with male colleagues, or any tips you could give them to sort of help progress women?
Yeah, I think recognizing the value of females and female leaders that are sat at the table, and, you know, taking an active role in championing women as well is super important, and we need to make that the culture. I think secondly, I recently kind of moved into a more creative role, and, you know, traditionally the creative industry again is so heavily male dominated. And for the first time in my career, I have a male line manager, and, you know, he's brilliant in everything from, you know, ensuring that I get equal opportunities in the business, that I get a seat at the table, you know, making sure that my voice is heard if it's not shouted loud enough. And I think that more behaviours like that as well from male colleagues is super important.
That sounds great. And Pav, anything else from you on this?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of male, you know, role models out there that want to support women. I've certainly had, I guess there's a couple, but one that has absolutely supported me in my career, given me lots of advice, and someone that I still go to actually, which is great. So, and I think for us as a freelance network, you know, we have lots and lots of women that are creative, but then we're working into agencies. And I think you're right from that creative point of view. You know, when you look at the amount of women that are in creative senior positions as creative directors or heads of department, there's far less than there are men, you know, so I think there is still a big way to go.
And I think that's really interesting. Also, going back to what you were saying before, Carrie, about the money side of it. You know, for years, I feel like women have sort of held back whenever it comes to talking about money, fees. Yeah. It's sort of like dodgy ground, isn't it? I know, working in journalism. So if someone was asked to go on Sky News, for example, you know, and a male colleague of mine would be straight to the point, well, how much are you going to pay me? Whereas I know a lot of women, female journalists and colleagues, who'd literally be like tottering around the subject and say, well, this is my fee, and would be willing to move on that. Yeah. And it's that mentality, isn't it, that I think we're still trying to get our heads around in some ways.
Absolutely. I was actually just discussing this in the office just then, and I was talking about confidence when it comes to asking for money or pay rises, or even being paid to do a certain job. Somebody was saying there was a story the other day of this woman. She basically she was going to ask for a pay rise, basically, and she wrote down the salaries, and then kept going up and up. And at the point where she started laughing a little bit, thinking, "Could I get this?" That's when she knew that's the point. I'm going to make the offer, basically, and I asked for that amount. And I think I listened to this podcast the other day about gender equality and stuff like that around pay, and it basically said that men are more confident in going and asking for a pay rise more often, and they're also more confident in asking for more money, and also to be paid the same amount. So I think education is one thing. One of my members of staff recently, when as a freelancer, first thing I did is I said to her, how much are you charging? And she kind of told me, and it was too low. And I said, I know we use some freelancers, male freelancers and women all around the world. And I said, here's a list of what everyone's charging. Don't go lower. Like, I think we can just do better by kind of educating and giving people insight. So yeah, I think it's a confidence thing. Definitely women are more held back about asking for those things. We always kind of ask, is that okay at the end of it? Men don't typically ask those questions. So yeah, I think a bit of training around being assertive is definitely what a lot of women could do with help on. But yeah, I've had a lot of that in the past, to being more assertive.
I think training around that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. And Jade, you touched on recognise the value of ourselves, which I think is so important, and again ties in with what we're all talking about in terms of that sort of assertiveness, isn't it, and being assertive. Pav, you're obviously immersed in the creative industry. What's your experience when it comes to women perhaps not recognising the value of ourselves enough?
Yeah, I think freelance is interesting because you have to have a level of confidence for you to go freelance, you know, and you kind of get they know their worth, I think, when they're at that level. But we are also very good at, again, when we interview our talent, we will ask that question: what are you currently charging as a freelancer? And, you know, they'll be like, oh, what do you think? And you're right, men will just go, well, I'll keep pushing and I'll keep pushing. Well, could I get 400 a day? Could I get 450? But actually we're saying, look, this is what you are worth and this is what you should be charging. So I think, you know, for us, it's making sure, again, we are that voice of, this is the benchmark, you know, that you should be charging as a freelancer, whether you're male or female. You know, it's based on ability and what you can deliver. And I think confidence is, again, you are confident when you're a freelancer, but there's a lot of freelancers that don't even have their own websites. They're not very good at self-promoting themselves. You know, it's like writing your own CV, isn't it? So I think, you know, again, it's just being there and us seeing these portfolios that are phenomenal, and we go, wow, you're just not selling yourself. You know, you're great at what you do, and it's just giving them that reassurance, I think.
And also, we were out recently, Lisa and I, with a former colleague of mine and friend, Terry White, who's a journalist and an author, and is quite prolific on women's rights. And we were talking about, you know, can you actually have it all, as cliche as it sounds, as a woman? Career, kids, you know, wellness, how do you juggle it? And Terry's ethos is actually that no, you can't actually have it all at one time. And I think there was some education around that really sort of resonated with Lisa and I, because how can we have it all? What's everyone's thoughts?
You can, it's hard. But again, I think we're able to. Women are just so much more organised, where they can get the kids to school, you know, get everybody ready first and foremost, and then, you know, have that to-do list ready, armed before they even get to the office, you know. And we are super organised, aren't we? When I compare myself to my husband, I am more organised without a doubt, and that's just comparing myself to him.
When we first start, oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, this isn't a you have your sort of 9 to 5 role either. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can't control when you the media or you know, the media at all. So I mean, I'm in a position where I have my children very young, so I'm now a grandma. Well,
congratulations!
I can't believe it, Jane.
Yeah, wow.
I know. So I've got so that time to pursue my career and really concentrate on that. So I'm in a really sort of lucky position where I'm really well supported. I work for a company that pays well. That we are very welcome to give our we have a scheme with innovative ideas. So yeah, I mean, I'm juggling a grandson now at the weekends when you've got you've got the call from the Times because they want something to go in on the Sunday. So it's a little round of it.
When we first started this call, you kind of mentioned that there's, you know, a lot of women in PR, but actually the problem that we're seeing is less women stay around in the industry as they progress up. And that's normally because people do go and have children. So they end up exiting the industry kind of, you know, at that kind of head of or director role. They then go and have a family and go and kind of like go on to new things. But actually, I think businesses could do more, and definitely are getting better at kind of getting women back into the industry after they've had their children. I'm going to admit, I'm 20, how old am I? I'm 29 next week. I don't have any kids, but I definitely fear it. But now listening to you guys, I know it's possible. But I've had many meetings with I have a private coach, and I've said, you know, how the hell do I have a year off? Like when can I have babies? And, you know, do I need to kind of change the way I work and things like that? And she's taught me like how it is going to be possible. But I think when you kind of now see new women talk with people that have kids and even grandkids, you show like this level of confidence and this superhero kind of stance. It's nice to kind of give confidence to us women that haven't got kids, knowing like actually we can do that. It is possible to do everything as well.
We adapt really well, don't we?
Yeah, we have no choice.
I think again that's really interesting what you're saying, because it's almost like we're empowering each other, and perhaps there's not enough of that going on within our work cultures, and maybe that's a lesson, you know, a bit of education that we can all take away. And you know, it's how important is it to empower other women in industry, and it's phenomenally important. I don't know if anyone's got any experiences that you can share about perhaps having, you know, one mentor in particular who perhaps was a female, or an icon, or someone who's given you really good words of wisdom throughout your career that you can relate to, who's another woman. Lisa, have you ever had a female?
No, do you know what? I've probably had more male mentors, which is a good thing, I suppose, in some ways. I think of some females I've worked with, some good ones and bad ones, and I remember one years ago that said some awful things to me about my start of my career. But I always find, and a female, and I still keep in touch with her now, but I always find I'm the sort of person, if somebody says I can't do something or I don't know how to do something, I go away, maybe cry and feel upset for a few days and go, I can do it. And maybe that was mentoring in a sort of bully tactic way, but no, I've had mainly some good male mentors that I still do keep in touch with, actually. Which is
pretty much the same with me, actually. I think one of my first ever news editors was a lady who tore shreds off me for mispronouncing something on the radio, rightly so at the time, many years ago. But actually that stayed with me, and it was character building, and she's still very prevalent in sort of my work life. And you know, I found her quite so empowering. So I do think it's important to have mentors.
It is.
One thing I definitely said to myself, so on my C-suite, I have 2 men and now 2 women. So it's literally half and half, which I'm very, very proud of. But previous to that, I only had 2 men. So there's 3 of us on our C-suite team making decisions for the business. And I basically knew that one day I need a mother hen, because at the minute I'm the mother hen, even though I'm 28, 29-year-old, you know, running this business, I have this kind of like motherly instinct of looking after the people. So I was like, you know, for the future growth of this business, I need another mother hen that works alongside me. And I think, you know, there's kind of these like rumors and feelings that some women don't hire other women alongside them because maybe it's a bit of a competition thing. But actually, that's where I saw the value of having another woman alongside me, because actually when I do decide to go and have my children or take a step back, that they take on that role of looking after the people. I don't say that men don't look after people, because they absolutely do, but they play this kind of different role and character, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting as well, actually, because I think it just goes back to how we do almost have that responsibility to kind of prop each other up as well, isn't it, within the industry? And again, just like build up each other's confidence and just have those open conversations as well with other women in the industry in terms of what it is that we need for our business and how we best make it work. Yeah. I think when I think back to my agencies now, actually, everyone that I've been at has always had a women's network as well. And also that peer-to-peer mentoring, which I think is super important as well.
It's good, yeah. I think moving on from the last question, and it's kind of, I think, talking about women and having it all and juggling it all, whether it's kids, whether it's caring for people have all different things that they do or things that they do outside of work. The pandemic, good and bad, hybrid working, has kind of made things slightly difficult in some ways for some people and amazing in other ways. Do you think the pandemic has hindered women or helped women, and kind of what will be the way forward from now on? Maybe go to Carrie Rose first.
Yeah, sure. I have a different kind of view on this, but I've read a lot on, you know, social medias and things like that actually it's hindered. And the reason being is women, you know, I guess 2 years ago, when they was at work, they was at work. When they was at home, they was at home. Now they're kind of playing both roles in all one day. So, you know, you're playing the mother role, you know, doing the cooking, the cleaning and sorting out the deliveries and all these kind of things that I guess we do in our days. But then also kind of playing work at the same time. And I think that kind of blurred boundaries definitely has impacted us. But then also kind of hearing conversations around the room doesn't happen as such anymore. You know, we're all stuck to our laptops in our living rooms or our kitchen dining tables and things like that. So it's hindered definitely. I actually read an article yesterday around the pandemic, and it was basically saying that more women lost their jobs during the pandemic than men. I think it was in our industry, actually. It was like a comms article. I think it might have been on Adweek or something like that. And yeah, so in my opinion, I think working from home and the hybrid working has definitely impacted this in a hindrance way, like in a negative way. But I think it's because of the blurred boundaries. You know, I start going home now, and even now I get to have that conversation with my boyfriend of like, I'm not cooking today, I've been at work all day. I don't want to have to do those sort of things. But it helps with those boundaries, I guess, as a relationship as well.
That's good. What do you think, Jade?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one. I think just from speaking to kind of colleagues in the team, that kind of working from home balance does mean that at times it almost kind of works in your favor. It gives you that chance to dial up certain areas when you need to give attention, whether that be with family or kind of work circumstances. So I think the flexibility there can be appreciated. And also, I think as well for businesses, it's important for them to kind of understand sometimes that demand that there might be for parents who are working from home and sometimes juggling family life with work life as well. And for an employer to be understanding of those challenges as well, because ultimately that then becomes an incentive as well for those people to remain within the business too. So yeah, I can imagine it's a bit of both.
Anyone else? Have you nodding there?
Yeah, no, I mean, for certainly from, I guess, a freelance point of view, imagine if years ago, God, working from home, is it possible? Can we connect to the server? Can we do that? It would have been a no. Whereas I think what has been interesting is that we've done it, and we've done it for several years. And certainly from a resource point of view, freelancers, it doesn't matter where they're based. We've had freelancers based in London servicing Leeds, Toronto servicing Manchester. So I think it's actually opened things up quite a bit, but there is that, having talked to a few friends that are in senior positions, it's exactly what we've said around, I'm not cooking the tea today, I've been working. There is an element of that where actually they've felt that because both, partners have been at home, the woman's had to do more of everything. Exactly, yeah. So I think from that perspective, I certainly knew some women that have felt it being a bit of a challenge, definitely. Yeah.
Anything on that, Jane?
Well, as working in the healthcare industry, we're all key workers, and because we've been helping with the cancer backlog and cancer treatments, our work sort of really ramped up over lockdown and COVID. So I continue to travel between our sort of 4 cancer centres, and we actually finished our cancer centre in Liverpool during the pandemic, and we actually started a build on our diagnostic centre in Somerset during the pandemic. So our work continued and actually ramped up. At some points we had sort of over 250 pieces out there in the media some months. So it was really busy time for us. But I think, again, because I live on my own, so I literally could, at the drop of a hat, go and get in the car, go traveling. I'm in a really fortunate position, and the company in a really fortunate position too, that I could do that. So I think I am valued a lot here. I do feel valued. But yeah, it was a really interesting time, and I actually got to sort of, I say, learn new skills with social media and how all that works. Things I'd never dreamed that I'd be involved with it when you sort of a bit further on into your career.
That's great. I think it has. I think the pandemic has blurred boundaries, hasn't it? And I think working at home more and getting your laptop out at different times. I know, me and Lee have had long chats over this. I've got 2 kids. Lee's got 2 kids, and I was homeschooling one. I had a young baby in the pandemic, and the juggle was tough. And that's why I kind of like to go back to the office most of the time now. I don't want to see the house and things that I need to do, but I just want to get away and feel like I'm away from being at home.
It was really hard to switch. Yeah, to switch off, even, but it was really hard to switch off, I think, because your laptop's on all the time, and it's when do you turn it off, or who thinks that they can sort of contact you at 10 o'clock at night and things like that. So it was, I suppose there is that side of it, but hopefully, going forwards now, it's going to be a little bit less of a frenzy, and we can get back in control of our work.
Definitely. And I think it's that visibility again, isn't it? Being seen at events, seen amongst your peers and that side of things. And I think hopefully for women and men, that gives opportunities to progress careers and move on as well.
So I'm taking away so far being confident, empowering each other, sort of real educational messages. And we know more and more workplaces are, of course, talking about women's issues such as menopause. There's been a big campaign and highlight on that already this year. But what else can be done to create a fairer gender balance? Pav, have you got any suggestions?
I just think education, like we've said, you know, the awareness piece, because, you know, maybe a lot of men don't understand, and they just need to understand, you know, and I think that would really help. And certainly in the organizations that I've worked in, the likes of Co-op, you know, there is a big drive, but I think we've got a lot more to do, and I think especially within the creative industry, absolutely. But yeah, so I would say education.
And Carrie Rose, what do you think?
Yeah, I think similar. I think asking questions and also women being open to answer them. Somebody asked me about, this is in the early days of Rise at 7, around miscarriage leave. Because I guess this is another thing that's become more and more apparent, especially I've seen businesses kind of roll it out more and more, where you get paid time off for a month, maybe 2 months if you have a miscarriage. Because the stats are quite shocking, and not many people know that. I think it's like 1 in 2 babies before the age of, like, I don't know, like 8 weeks or something, like people have a miscarriage basically during that period. So it's very common, and I think that miscarriage isn't the only thing, you know, the menopause and things like that. There's a lot of things that women go through, I guess, in our lives, and women and men understanding that and asking questions around it and being curious, like, that's okay. And I think a lot of men don't ask that, like, dare ask those questions. But so I think business owners, anybody that's listening to this, of like how they could do more, is just like be open to ask questions and speak to your female colleagues a lot more.
Absolutely. And Jane, what are your thoughts on that area?
Yeah, I think I agree. It's encouraging people to be open, honest, and have the confidence to do that in the workplace. And there is no right or wrong answer, and it's being given confidence to do that. And I think people will actually be surprised. I mean, we actually now have where I work at Rutherford, we have a menopause policy. So that's sort of something that's been in place probably about 12 months or so now. So everybody's aware across the company, and nobody, you know, there's no judgment or anything like that. It's just everybody understands, and that's been a huge thing here.
It's a big thing at the minute in the media, isn't it? I was at an event, the Meet the Media one we did in Manchester last week, and I won't name the journalist from National Press, who's based in Manchester, but he said at the minute, any story that can hook somebody around the menopause, a leader, a female leader or something, or you're trying to sell a brand, whatever it may be, is a big thing that they're looking at the moment. So I think, you know, Davina McCall's been talking about that, hasn't she? And it's there's a lot more sort of celebrities coming forward. Meg Matthews as well, she's another one. Which is good, you know, more conversations in the media, people reading about things, and that's great, isn't it? I think the workplace, particularly women, there's lots of different things that probably women have going on in their lives, impacts on their body and things, changes than men traditionally do. Yeah. And I think the more that can be thought about and adapted in the workplace for that individually is really important. Have you got anything else on that, Jade? Or
yeah, just kind of mirror what everyone said, and I guess one other point might just be continuing with these increased flexibility models that we have seen off the back of the pandemic, and actually making sure that continues and isn't just part of, you know, this 2-year bubble. And also just thinking about colleagues as well, you know, making sure that there's a real onboarding and investment as well in those return to work programs. When people do return from maternity leave, I think sometimes that can get a little bit lost, and just making sure there's those contact programs as well during maternity leave too. You know, just to make sure that when those breaks are taken, that people are coming back in and feeling confident and fully supported, you know, from their colleagues and the business too.
Yeah, because it's hard, isn't it, when you come back to the office again, you've been away and things have changed, faces have changed. And
a lot can change in a year, you know, in the organisation, can't it? Sometimes you can walk back in and go, wow, this is a completely different place, you know, so yeah, agree.
And sometimes I feel like we've been talking about, you know, women's rights and for years. In terms of moving forward in the future, 5 years time down the line, what would each of you like to see in place when it comes to women in the workplace, so to speak? Jane, have you got any thoughts 5 years down the line? It probably seems quite far off, but as we all know, it'll be here before we know it.
I think maybe looking at board level. maybe having a communications person that would sit on the board. I mean, traditionally marketing has always sat on a board, business development, the commercial roles, but a communication board member. And
I think that's so important because, as we all know, especially this day and age, communication is absolutely crucial, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that, like you're saying, Jay, from an in-house perspective as well, I think marketing have always been advised, but comms has kind of been on the side. But I think now with everything and policies around sustainability and brand and how you represent yourself is so important, and that comms person should be really have that seat at the board and having the ear of the the top people there.
Well, we do very much sit in the background, don't we? Because we're supporting, we're supporting people, companies, or whatever we're doing. So I think it's time to turn that round and have that recognition at that level.
Pav, what about you? What are your projections 5 years time? What would you like to see?
I'd love to see more creatives on, in senior positions. Really would. Women, definitely more creative directors, and yeah, again to be feeling encouraged to be able to come back after they've had kids. I think that would be really, really good.
And Jade, have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I just mirror what Pav said. More female creatives in the industry. I think Gabriella Lungu said a couple of years ago that female creatives are like unicorns, because they're actually so rare. So can we flip that? We need more female creatives in the industry for sure.
I love that phrase. Rose, what about you?
I guess, yeah, adding more business owners and founders that are women. I think investors could do more, lawyers could do more, people that are like business coaches can help young creatives start their own businesses. And actually, okay, it's not easy, but how easy it is to actually get set up and give them the tools and the advice and the all of the different things that has to come into place to start an actual business up in the first place. That's what I would love to see, more women starting businesses as well.
Right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see as well. I think from like a perspective from very young kids, I've got 2 daughters, one is which is nearly 8. Those things around building self-confidence, as we talked about at the beginning at school, talking to people about the different career options, showing them that the diversity out there, that roles are not just just for men and women. And I think that all needs to change a little bit more. And those conversations from a grassroots level be really nice to see, to inspire future generations, and also about being your authentic self. I think we haven't touched on that, but sometimes I was saying to Jane earlier about the way you are and the way you dress, and sometimes I think, well, I can't say that, I can't do that. But I think as you get older, you just think, well, this is me. You have to like me as I am. And obviously sometimes you have to tailor that for the situation you're in, but being yourself, really, if you want to dress a certain way, that's the way I am. Or if I want to, this is my opinion on something, not be scared to say that. And I think that comes with confidence, but that also is something that kind of needs to be nurtured as well, doesn't it? I think,
yeah,
women, because women can be quite scared to say things that they really believe in. What about you, Lee?
I agree with you entirely, actually, but I do think there's I'd like to see more young women coming through. I know a lot of young women that I know in industry are extremely confident, which is great, but they do have a lot of self-imposter, imposter syndrome going on. So I think less of the imposter syndrome issues, more confidence, and more women certainly at senior board level, especially around comms, as Jane touched on before.
And I think a wider understanding of the sector of PR and communications. I think that's something the PRCA has been trying to push. We've been stalled a little bit with the pandemic, but like a schools outreach, as I said before, people understanding that as a career and the excitement and the opportunities that you can have, both male and female, I think will hopefully get lots more people to come and join us in this exciting world that we're in.
Well, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for your time today. I don't know if anyone's got anything else that you'd like to talk about. I feel like we've pretty much covered most things, but on International Women's Day, I'd just like to say a huge thank you again. And I know how precious time even is for everyone. So huge thanks from me and from you, Lisa, as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks. And speak soon.
Speak soon.
Take care. Bye.
See you very soon. Thanks so much again. Bye. Bye.
Bye.